Hey everyone, what's up and welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Joe Biden surging in the polls. I'm not kidding, surging in the polls, uh, you know, and how that impacts this election. Joe Biden has had a consistent lead in the polls, don't get me wrong, but, towards the end of August, Trump had started to narrow it up, and some people started calling it the Trump bump. The Republican convention was doing well for an incumbents convention. Again, the Democratic convention did well on its own, but, taking a look first, state of Wisconsin, Donald Trump was behind 8 towards the end of June and beginning of July. Then at one point, he narrowed it up to just 3.5. And now he is back down to, 6-7 points. So that's not good for him. And he's starting to lose the momentum that he had towards the end of August, beginning of September. And that's not good at all for him because he needs that momentum. Because people in June, July, when it was looking like Biden was going to win, states like Florida, Texas, or not Texas, Florida, maybe making Texas a tilt or toss-up state, Iowa and Ohio. He was polling very well all across the nation and was he had an 85 to 90% chance of winning the election. People were saying, okay, well, maybe as of right now he does, but it's going to narrow up by the election. Well, we are 3 months away from June. We are we're almost a month away from the election, guys. There is not a lot of time left for Donald Trump to fix the mistakes he's made, or for Joe Biden, and Joe Biden's winning right now, but if he were losing, to fix the mistakes he would have made. So, yeah. So we're going to be talking about the polling data that we've seen so far from Real Clear Politics. Again, gotta remember that the state of Wisconsin is a key battleground. Donald Trump it'll be very hard for him to win without Wisconsin. I mean, he needs to win one Rust Belt state, essentially, or pick off Nevada or New Hampshire. Not Nevada or New Hampshire. Pick off Nevada and New Hampshire, or win a Rust Belt state. Those are his only paths to victory. So he has to win Wisconsin by all means, because Wisconsin is expected to definitely vote to the left of Minnesota and Michigan. And Pennsylvania, 90% it votes to the right. Excuse me. Wisconsin is going to vote to the right of Minnesota and Michigan, and it's very likely that it votes to the right of Pennsylvania. So, yeah. Now, Donald Trump actually did have a point where he was leading in the polls, in February, beginning of March. And again, that was a long time ago, so you don't really want to look at that. But, Wisconsin, it's not like Donald Trump has never pulled ahead in Wisconsin. It's just that he's losing support. In February, he was ahead by nearly 2 points. Now he's behind by, nearly 7 points. So that's not good. And I understand that the polls in Wisconsin, they put Hillary Clinton ahead by nearly 6, and she ended up losing it by a little less than 1%. So Donald Trump did outperform the polls in Wisconsin, but polls have fixed their methods. Democrats did very well there in the midterms, so not looking too promising for Donald Trump right now in the state of Wisconsin. So why is it narrowing up? Well, first of all, I think there are a few things to take a look at. Nothing significant, but, Bob Woodward, the Woodward tapes were leaked of Trump essentially saying he wanted to downplay COVID-19. That's not a good look for him, and him kind of, the media taking some things that he said out of context. And again, some of those things were in context. Some of those things he did say that are making him lose this election. But there are other things that the media, or the left-leaning media, did take out of context against him. Again, this is a really touchy subject. I'm trying to be as unbiased as I can here, as objective as I can. But, the Woodward, it's not debatable whether the Woodward tapes hurt him with some voters. That's just a fact. Whether it was taken out of context or not, that's a fact that it hurt him with those voters. So that's what I'm trying to say here. Now, Wisconsin, I do still think will be close. I do think it will be in the lean margin for Joe Biden. I think if I had a characterization in between lean and likely, I would put both Wisconsin and Pennsylvania as lean and likely. Probably also with Minnesota, maybe not Michigan, but, all these states are lean and likely states for Joe Biden at this point in time, and it's going to stay that way till the election. I mean, in June, you could have made the case that Trump's going to come back and, win Wisconsin, win Pennsylvania, win North Carolina, but as of right now, that does not appear to be happening because, okay, you can say that at Donald Trump's low point, he was losing by 8% in Wisconsin. He's only narrowed that up by 1.4%. That doesn't do him any good, other than making it a little closer. So, yeah. So now we're going to go and just run down this list. Now we're going to go to the state of Florida. So this is a state where Donald Trump had a very, very good poll, actually. from ABC News, which does actually tend to underestimate Trump in some of these states. And if you remember, at Trump's low point, he was actually losing by 8.4%. That was in the middle of July, or he was losing by 7% towards the end of June. So, Donald Trump never really pulls terrifically in Florida. He either is ahead by a little, or he's losing by a lot. And he was losing by a lot in Florida. And to be honest, I never really trusted these numbers. I consistently said that Donald Trump should not be counted out in Florida. So, yeah, but as of right now, Joe Biden still maintains a lead. And he has, he was only ahead by 1.4. And he's now ahead by 1.3. But again, we're starting to see him go up to where he was before. Maybe not, a 7 to 8% lead, but he is going back up to where he should aim to be. And again, Florida is not a must-win for Joe Biden. It's a must-win for Donald Trump. I actually made a whole video discussing whether Donald Trump can win without the state of Florida. He can't win without the state of Florida unless he somehow wins Minnesota, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and New Hampshire, I believe. In Nevada, I think he needs. Again, I think maybe not New Hampshire, but he needs like Nevada and Minnesota. He needs to win, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, etc. So it's not really, he can't win without Florida. So yeah, that's important to remember. And the polls were pretty spot on in Florida. They were off by, RCP's polls were off by 0.2% in 2016 because they put Trump ahead narrowly, but he ended up winning it by a little more than the polls said. So for Joe Biden to be ahead by that, yeah, maybe you can give Trump 0.2%. Still gives Biden the victory. So, again, that's not a good sign. I'm characterizing this as a tilt Trump state, although if there was an option for a pure toss-up, which, you know what, I'm just going to add that as a pure toss-up, to be completely honest. This is really not, I can't characterize this state, to be completely honest. Florida, I wish there was, I wish I knew who was going to win Florida. I really don't. This is just Florida being Florida, so if I could just change this to none. So, that's essentially what's going on with this map. But either way, Biden has already won the election. So, yeah. And then now we're going to go next to the state of Pennsylvania. And a lot of people believe this to be the tipping point state. I personally believe that the tipping point state will actually end up being either Wisconsin or Arizona. I think Pennsylvania will vote slightly to the left of the country by, 0.5% at most, but I could see Pennsylvania being the tipping point. That is a completely rational belief. So if you think that, no disrespect intended. Now, Pennsylvania has been very steady for Joe Biden, which is why I'm not going to say surging. His best point, he was ahead by 8.5, kind of in the middle of July, end of July. And he's now, he's maintained the lead. At one point, he was only winning by 3, which is actually less than Hillary Clinton was winning by, beginning of September. He was only winning by 3, and Hillary Clinton was ahead by, 3.5. So basically the same mark, and she ended up losing the state of Pennsylvania. But, since then, since this low point, or, the 2% lead for Biden, Donald Trump has a return to the bottom. He is now going back to, losing by 4.5, losing by 4. That's not a good sign for him in the state that he needs to win. In Pennsylvania, that's 20 electoral votes that he absolutely needs. And Joe Biden was born there. He's a perfect candidate for the Democrats. If they're trying to run for president of Pennsylvania, they should be running Joe Biden. Although I guess Bob Casey would be the best option because he's very popular. But you get what I'm trying to say, hopefully. So the polls, but again, these polls have been very steady, and that's why I'm not going to talk about them too much. But here's what we are going to talk about. I want to spend a lot of time talking about North Carolina because this has been all over the place. Now, look at this. Joe Biden, at one point he had a lead of 5%, which is pretty big for North Carolina. The polls, North Carolina loves to have close races, but now it's down to just 0.8%. So, he was up by 5%, but then, he was losing. He was losing by nearly 1% and for a good amount of time in August, for about a week and a half in August. Then Biden, it was kind of tied. Trump and then Trump retook the lead. It's been very narrow though. Now Biden is coming back, and again, he was at 1.5%, 2 weeks ago there, or a little less than 2 weeks ago. But you're not going to maintain a 1.5% lead consistently. That would be really weird if you just had a flat line. But instead, what we're seeing is that it's narrowing up a little bit, sure, but 0.8% is basically the same thing as 1.5% in terms of polling. And then again, in fact, he was actually down by 0.6% at 0.5% at one point, and now he went back up 0.8. So it's kind of the same thing, but I do agree that North Carolina will be very close. And the reason I'm not labeling it as a pure toss-up, I really would like to, but I don't want to leave more than one state as a toss-up. And, that's basically just what I'm going to say for North Carolina. I will mention that they now have a Democratic governor, which means the mail-in ballots will be counted for sure, whereas, in 2016, a lot of provisional ballots especially were rejected by the Secretary of State, who was a Republican at the time. Now he is a Democrat. And now in the state of Michigan, Joe Biden, he's had a very steady lead. He's never trailed in Michigan, as he never should have been trailing, But, he actually had a worrying point where he was only up by 3%. And that was essentially the same margin as Hillary Clinton in 2016. And that's scary because you don't want to make the same mistakes as Hillary Clinton, or when it comes to this election. But now he's returned, he's now at 6.4% lead, 6.4%, 5.2%. So he's maintaining that 5 to 6% lead that he needs. And all he has to do in Michigan is outperform Hillary Clinton by 0.3%. That's literally all he needs to do. And he's blowing that challenge out of the water relative to what a lot of people thought. So Michigan, I have no problem saying it will be likely. I could see it being lean. But to be fair to Joe Biden, I expect him to win here by a pretty comfortable margin. I mean, considering the fact that Donald Trump has withdrawn ad buys from Michigan, that makes sense. Now, going over the state of Arizona, Donald Trump has really never led here. I mean, he had, a lead here for 1 day and 2 days in March, but that's not significant right now. But what was his low point? Well, his low point was essentially he was losing by, 5%. He was losing by 5% right here. And that was obviously not fun for him. That period, June, July, that was his low point, definitely. Arizona, in fact, and I watched a video from another election forecaster saying Arizona is a likely Democratic state. I never moved that far. When I started my channel, I labeled it as a tilt Democrat state, but now I'm kind of keeping it as a lean Democratic state. So that is really just all I need to say about Arizona. Again, the polls have maintained a steady lead for Joe Biden. I mean, Hillary Clinton, the polls actually underestimated her by 0.5% here. So, I'm just trying to say that Arizona has been very, very steady. There hasn't really been a surge for Biden. I mean, Trump had a bump where he narrowed it up. But again, whoever's leading in Arizona is probably going to win in the polling's data. Unless Trump leads by 0.1%, then I'll probably still go with Biden winning it by a tilt margin. But again, that's subjective, because I'll have to see where we are if Trump's leading by 0.1% in Arizona. Now, Minnesota there was a lot of hype regarding Minnesota going to Biden because of that one Trafalgar poll that came out that narrowed it up to 3.7%. And now we're back to normal Minnesota, where Joe Biden is winning comfortably by double digits. So, that was one poll that people were overhyping. If I could just pull it up, Trafalgar. Yeah, it's a Republican internal poll. It's sampled a good amount of voters, but those are likely voters, so you never know. And then a tie, not even that convincing. So, to be quite honest, I never really bought that poll. I've stayed fairly steady in my characterization of Minnesota being a lean, likely Democratic state. So that's what I'm going to essentially keep it as. I mean, there wasn't really a bump unless you count that wacky poll, but, I maintain fairly consistent with my characterization of Minnesota. Now, Ohio is interesting because the Republican polls seem to be liking Biden in Ohio. In fact, the RCP average, they don't want to give me. Why does it not want to show me what? Okay, I don't know why it doesn't want to show me the graph, because that would be very helpful. But the polling data, excuse me, that was a really bad voice crack. The polling data, even Fox News is putting Biden ahead. Rasmussen reports, which was a pretty good poll in 2016. In fact, it was the only poll in Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania that put Trump ahead, putting Biden ahead by 4. It's kind of a boomer bust poll. I don't really trust that number, Biden being ahead by 4 in Ohio, which is why I've maintained my characterization of it as a tilt Trump state. So, I mean, I wish I had the graph, because that's what I would be talking about. But hopefully they'll give me the graph for Iowa. They don't want to, but, the average seems to be a tie. One poll for the New York Times has it as 3, Biden ahead by 3. The other has it at 3 ahead by Trump's, and then this one has a tie. This is perfect. But, so again, I'm not going to talk about Iowa too much. I've always said that this state should be favored to go to Donald Trump, or that Donald Trump should be favored here. But Nevada, it doesn't want to show me the graph. Come on. But Nevada has again maintained fairly consistent for Joe Biden. I do expect it to actually be lean, even though the polls in Nevada do tend to actually underestimate, surprisingly enough, Democrats by a decent amount. In fact, the polls there, Trump was expected to win Nevada according to the polls in 2016, and he ended up losing that state. So that is what really makes me kind of nervous about Nevada being likely for the Democrats. The polls have been pretty bad there, especially for the Democrats. New Hampshire, I actually hope it'll show me the graph. No, okay, it doesn't. Maybe I just turned off the graph on accident. Oh, no, I didn't. Okay, so New Hampshire, can't really talk about that. I don't think it'll show up on Maine either, but, the polls at Maine at large have been fairly consistent. There's not too much to talk about there. There's definitely a graph for Georgia. So Georgia, what? Okay, so Georgia, the recent polls have it as a tie. Biden ahead by 2, Biden ahead by 1. But, it's kind of been all over the place. I've seen polls that Biden ahead by 5 and Trump ahead by 7, so not too much to talk about in Georgia. And then in the state of Texas, I know there is a graph there, I know for a fact. Now, Texas, I love to talk about Texas. The polling data there is so fascinating. And in fact, this is the one state where Trump's actually gaining momentum, For a while, it was a tie. Biden never really had the lead here, unless you're looking at 538, but Joe Biden at his best point was tied with Trump, but Trump has maintained a consistent lead here. He's winning by 4. Again, I don't think he should be winning by more because the polls in Texas in 2016 underestimated the Democrats by 3%, or at least Hillary Clinton by 3%. So that's not a good sign. But generally speaking, I don't expect Texas to flip. That would be very, very strange, and it would be a big deal. So I'm not going to talk about Colorado and New Mexico. Those are not really swing states at this point in time. They're both likely to safe Democratic Biden hold states. So, guys, that's essentially it. I hope you enjoyed my analysis of these polls. That would be interesting if Texas went blue. For the record, I don't think it's going to happen, but I think it would be interesting. So, guys, again, thanks for watching this video. Be sure to click the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. Check out all the links in the description, and I'll see you all tomorrow.